Stanford is down in Central Florida, who's ranked in the top 20. That's going to be a hostile environment. It's going to be kind of a bounce-back game for Stanford. They do have KJ Costello back. They're All-American second-team starting quarterback who missed last week versus USC, so that should be a good one for Stanford, but they fell out of the top 25 after that beatdown by the Trojans. And then Cal welcomes in North Texas to Berkeley. North Texas, of course, is the old home of offensive coordinator for the Trojans now, Graham Harrell, so they'll run a high-tempo air raid offense, but we'll see if Cal now can kind of enter the conversation, sneak in that top 25 after their win versus UW. And then Arizona State's at Michigan State, who's ranked 18th in the country. It's going to be a hard game for Arizona State. They're a young team. They have Jaden Williams, that freshman quarterback under Herm Edwards, and it's always tough to play in East Lansing, Michigan, especially this time of year. So there's some interesting games in the pack, definitely this weekend.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you make a good point in regards to the power shift. Not necessarily that the South Division's better than the North. The North was certainly much better last year and expected to be this year. But in terms of the power brokers that hold the conference's status and college football playoff hopes, it's completely shifted south because of the upsets of Washington against Cal, Stanford losing, and of course Oregon non-conference loss. So that you would seemingly, unless they go on a run, somebody goes on a run of winning 9-10 consecutive games to get themselves back in it. USC and Utah have the clearest path to a college football playoff. I know that's far removed from what they should be concerned with right now, but in terms of looking at the numbers and the path, that's where it stands right now. And you mentioned, I'll just kind of gloss over these as well. Central Florida, Stanford, I thought that was just a tremendous matchup to be scheduled in the preseason. Now with Stanford not looking so good last week, we'll see if they're able to bounce back. I got to think that Stanford has so much pride, KJ Costello back at quarterback, that they're going to make that a game. They're a 9-point underdog on the road at UCF, and weather could be an issue there. We talked some UCF football the other day, and they've got another hurricane blowing through there, so we'll see the timing of that. You mentioned Michigan State basically doesn't give up a yard rushing the ball. They're just rock solid on defense, always are. Could be a bit of an ugly affair against Arizona State, but the Sun Devils pulled off the upset in Tempe last year. Of course, Jaden Daniels, freshman quarterback, getting his third start. Hawaii's had a nice little run against the Pac-12 with the win against Arizona most recently, and Oregon State. They get their shot at Washington. The game that kind of got lost in the wee hours of the morning on Sunday morning last week against Cal, when I pride myself in watching every college football game and making sure I don't go to bed until they're all complete. Well, that one I had to tap out on. I
heard you went to bed. You stayed up for
this wasn't going to happen.
No, I didn't even stay up for that, man. The lightning delays and everything up in Washington.
I think it ended at 4:22 Eastern time. And
the best part was the Seahawks game the next afternoon was perfect sunshine, no problem.
Yeah. The best thing that happened for me was that I woke up and saw that, not that I picked Cal to win, but I took the 14 points, certainly. Right. And as you mentioned, Cal turns around and takes on a game North Texas bunch that's always ready, and certainly has been a better program in the group of five in recent years. And Oklahoma, UCLA, on the surface, the brand name should speak to, oh, wow, got to watch this game. But man, UCLA's awful.
I was at the Rose Bowl last weekend with the Pac-12 networks with Ted Robinson and Yogi Roth, and man, we talked about it off air too. First of all, one of the lowest crowds in the last 25 years at the Rose Bowl. It was a third San Diego State fans. You have to give them a little bit of slack because school's not in session for these quarter system schools. So the student section had all of 150 kids in it because a lot of them are still at home or on break or working, So school's not in session, not as many kids, but a 90-degree afternoon at the Rose Bowl. Not a ton of fans came out. No home field advantage really for UCLA, and their offense just looks atrocious. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a great athletic player, but I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't think he can throw the ball where he wants it. And Chip Kelly keeps saying he doesn't have the personnel to run an offense like he did at Oregon. But at some point, you have to put the blame on Chip Kelly and say, hey, man, you're calling the plays, you're recruiting the players, and you got to get something going here because it is a big-time program, and there's nothing to show for right now. I mean, I was talking to Yogi Roth about it, and if you look at the top 6 receivers for UCLA, I don't think any of those guys would be be the number one option or even starting at some of these schools like a USC or like a Oregon. I mean, USC has a top 5 receiver group that would all be the number ones at UCLA. So it's not only that they're not executing, they just don't have the personnel right now, Mark. And it's a little worrisome because I don't know how deep this UCLA team can go, how far they can spiral. And I'm hoping they can just keep within 30 points versus Oklahoma and Jalen Hurts this weekend, because the Rose Bowl is probably going to be half Oklahoma fans, if not more.
It is odd because Jim Mora did a decent job there, but obviously his worst seasons were at the end. That's one of the reasons he was dismissed. But his recruiting classes weren't great, but they were top 15 to 25 level. And then Chip Kelly is bringing in the same level of talent, at least that first recruiting cycle and a half. But there's been no player development. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, as you mentioned, unless things dramatically change, you expect a young player possibly to struggle, especially when he's not getting the support around him. But he's just not delivering basic throws across the field of any variety. And it's just, man, putting up 14 points against 2 group of 5 teams consecutive weeks is it could be just really, really bad this year for UCLA, which we thought 3-9 was. But wow.
Yeah, 3-9 was, and then they showed some life last year at the end of the season. They beat USC at home, and I think they almost beat Stanford at home. They just lost by a single tally or a couple points, and they looked like they were trending in that right direction. They had a big time off season, and then they come out with a couple of duds. And I was reading in the LA Times, it was like people are questioning what Chip Kelly was doing this offseason, because they look like they've regressed instead of progressed. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep it anywhere within a few points against Oklahoma. I don't think they will, but down the road, hopefully they can make some progression and then maybe, beat the likes of an Oregon State or a Arizona down the road.
Yeah, college football is better when USC is good. College football is even better when USC and UCLA get on the field and it means something at the end of the year. Yeah. No question about that. One of the great rivalries in college football. Pete Garrison on the line, Fox Sports, also USC Blog Talk Radio. So please join him there. You can hear right here the sample of insight and information from Pete. So we appreciate you stopping by, getting us set on USC and the rest of the Pac-12.
Yeah, Mark, the Pac-12 is trying to pick it up. Obviously, still not as strong as some of these conferences, but it's getting interesting. And as you mentioned, the Pac-12 kind of runs with the USCs and UWs being successful. So we'll see if they can come through this week and keep their roles going.